Here are the translations for our lesson from chapter 25. So we obviously have here a sentence with indirect discourse. We have someone speaking. Inquit just means he says. And so the sentence we're going to look at is quisque semper putat suas res esse magnas. I should say we have direct discourse and indirect discourse. So the direct discourse is inquit, he says, and then we get this quote. And within the quotation, we have indirect discourse because we have this verb of speaking. So let's just take the sentence in quotes. What's our main verb? It is putat. We need to parse that. Present, indicative, active, third, singular means he, she, or it thinks. And whenever we have a verb of thinking, speaking, saying, knowing, feeling, sensing, we should expect indirect discourse. But first, before we get there, do we have a nominative? We do. The nominative is quisque, which means anyone. So anyone thinks, or we could, in English we might say everyone. Anyone or everyone thinks. What does he think? Well, now, after here, when we look for an accusative to be the subject, we kind of still have that in indirect discourse. Everyone thinks, and here's our accusative, suas res, his own things, his own, we'd say business in English, his own business, and now it's followed by an infinitive. Everyone thinks his own business to be magnas, great. So everyone thinks his own business to be great. What would we say, smooth that out in English? We'd say everyone thinks his own business is important or great. And then that's in quotation marks, right? And we just have inquit on the beginning. He says, everyone thinks his own business is important. Is a big deal, is great. Okay, so we have a present tense main verb followed by a present tense infinitive. So everyone thinks his own business is present tense, present tense. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. Postea audivimus servos donorum causa laborabilis ut milites fideles heri nawawarant. Okay, I've got a comma and a conjunction, ut. So I know I've got 2 clauses. So we're going to start with the first clause. Postea audivimus servos donorum causa laborabilis. So where's my main verb? Audivimus is my main verb. There's another verb here. There's this infinitive, laborabilis, but that can't be the main verb. A main verb has to be a finite verb, a verb limited with person and number. So I'm always looking for a finite verb, a verb with person and number to be my main verb. So that's audivimus. And I should parse that. That is a perfect tense, indicative mood, active voice in its first plural. We heard. Audivimus. We heard. So it's a past tense, a perfect tense. Is there a nominative? No, because it's just we. It's within the verb, so we still just have we heard. Well, what did we hear? Is there an accusative to be the direct object? Well, yes, but it's again in indirect discourse. We heard the slaves. So we heard the slaves, and now I see this infinitive. And it's a perfect infinitive. We heard the slaves to have worked. Okay, now I can see I'm in indirect discourse. So I'm going to put a that here in English. And I'm going to notice I've got a past tense verb, main verb. Now I've got a past tense infinitive. That means it's not going to be to have worked. It's gonna go one before that because it's past of the past. The past infinitive is before the past tense main verb. So this is going to be what? We heard that the slaves, what's before the perfect tense? The pluperfect tense. We heard that the slaves had worked. Well, what had they worked for? For the sake of, causa, for the sake of the gifts, donorum. For the sake of the gifts. And now I've got a new clause. So now I need to start over. What's the main verb in my clause? Nawawarant. That is pluperfect. Pluperfect. Indicative, active, third plural. They had narrated, or they had told. Who had told? Who's my nominative? It is milites fideles, faithful soldiers. Faithful soldiers had told. And now I just have one more word, yesterday. Ut in yesterday. Ut is just as. Just as, we could put the faithful soldiers had told yesterday. So the whole sentence, we heard that the slaves had worked for the sake of the gifts, just as the faithful soldiers had told, in English you'd probably say had told us yesterday. So, note, remember, the main verb of a clause sets the baseline. We heard. The infinitive, okay, if this is past tense, it's previous to the tense of the main verb. So we heard that they had worked. So that's how the tenses work together. So you could see on a quiz, for example, not only this example from this translation, but also one of the examples from pages 203 and 204. And I might ask you in a multiple choice, what's the best translation for dicant or dix erunt eam juare? They have said that he was helping. So review those on page 203 and 204 as part of your review for the quiz.